In the quiet English town of Ashbridge, nestled among the rolling hills and cobblestone streets, the year 1826 unfolded with a peculiar kind of stillness. It was a place where every face was familiar, and every whisper travelled swiftly through the narrow lanes lined with modest brick cottages and the steady chiming of the parish church bell. Yet, amidst this peaceful setting, a solitary figure began to draw the attention of neighbours and strangers alike. A widow named Eleanor Blackwood, whose presence seemed to carry the weight of a profound and silent grief. Eleanor had arrived in Ashbridge scarcely 6 months prior, taking residence in the modest stone house at the edge of Willow Lane. The townsfolk knew little of her past, beyond the sparse details shared through quiet gossip. A marriage cut tragically short, a husband lost to the merciless grip of illness, and a sorrow that shrouded her like a veil. What set Eleanor apart, however, was an unusual habit that soon became the talk of the town. Each morning, without fail, she would retreat to the small writing desk by the window, pen in hand, and compose letters addressed not to her family, nor to acquaintances, but to a stranger, someone no one had ever seen or heard of. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The letters began appearing shortly after the first frost of November, their envelopes sealed with a delicate hand, stamped and sent off to an unknown destination. The townspeople discovered these missives in the village post office and in the hands of curious children who had found them discarded or misplaced. The letters bore no return address, only the name A.L. inscribed in a flowing script that seemed almost too elegant for the humble woman who penned them. The contents, when read aloud in hushed gatherings, were filled with heartfelt reflections, raw emotion, and a yearning that transcended ordinary correspondence. Mrs. Harriet Winslow, the town's schoolmistress, was among the first to voice her intrigue. In her diary, later uncovered by a visiting historian, she described the scene vividly. Each day, Mrs. Blackwood sits by her window, a solitary figure enveloped in shawl and shadow, pouring forth words that carry the weight of unspoken sorrow. Her letters speak of love lost and hope deferred, as if she writes not to a man, but to a ghost or a dream. Harriet's observations sparked a quiet fascination that rippled through Ashbridge, transforming Eleanor's private mourning into a public mystery. The arrival of these letters coincided with a period of transformation within the town itself. England in 1826 was a nation on the cusp of change, its landscapes dotted with the marks of the Industrial Revolution. Though Ashbridge remained largely untouched by the factories and smokestacks of the larger cities, the social currents of the era were felt keenly. Widows, in particular, faced a precarious existence, bound by strict societal expectations that often relegated them to the margins of community life. Eleanor's decision to write, to reach out beyond the confines of her loss, challenged these norms quietly but profoundly. The letters themselves were works of delicate craftsmanship. Eleanor's handwriting flowed with a poetic grace, each sentence carefully constructed to convey the depths of her emotion without descending into despair. She wrote of days spent wandering the meadows near the river, of the changing seasons mirrored in the shifting tides of her heart. Her words were at once intimate and universal, touching on themes of love and loss, memory and longing. One such letter, dated December 3rd, read, "Though you remain unseen, your presence fills the spaces between my breaths. In the silence of the night, I speak to you as though you were beside me, an echo of what once was, or perhaps what might yet be. This act of reaching out to an unknown recipient sparked a profound curiosity among the townsfolk. Some speculated that Eleanor's letters were addressed to a lover lost at sea, or a soldier missing in distant wars. Others whispered that she might be writing to a figment of her imagination, a coping mechanism born from unbearable isolation. The local vicar, Reverend Thomas Hadley, expressed concern during his Sunday sermons, urging the community to offer support and prayer for Mrs. Blackwood, whose melancholic solitude was becoming ever more pronounced. Yet no one could deny the magnetic pull of Eleanor's correspondence. The letters began to circulate quietly among trusted neighbors, read in secret and discussed with a mixture of empathy and wonder. They were seen as windows into a soul, struggling to find meaning in the void left by death, and as subtle acts of rebellion against the rigid social confines that sought to silence widows like her. Eleanor's words breathed life into the town's otherwise predictable rhythms, stirring conversations about the nature of grief, the power of written expression, and the mysteries held within human connection. Despite this growing intrigue, Eleanor herself remained an enigma. She was rarely seen outside her home, and when she did appear in the village market or at church, her demeanor was reserved and distant. The few who attempted to engage her in conversation found her responses measured, often tinged with a quiet melancholy. Yet there was a spark, an unspoken resilience beneath her sorrow, that hinted at a deeper story waiting to unfold. It was as if the act of writing these letters was both a lifeline and a secret rebellion, a way to bridge the gulf between despair and hope. The townspeople's fascination with Eleanor's letters grew alongside their own isolation in a rapidly changing world. Ashbridge, with its close-knit community and slow pace of life, became a microcosm for the tension between tradition and the unknown. Eleanor's correspondence challenged perceptions of widowhood and mourning, inviting others to consider the myriad ways in which grief could manifest and be transformed. Her letters spoke not only to the stranger addressed, but to the collective heart of the town, a silent invitation to explore the depths of human emotion beyond spoken words. In the weeks following the first appearance of the letters, Ashbridge settled into an uneasy rhythm marked by anticipation and speculation. The postmaster, Mr. Samuel Griggs, found himself at the center of this quiet mystery as he became the guardian of the letter's journey. He noted in his ledger the steady flow of mail addressed to A.L. and the careful manner in which Eleanor prepared each envelope. His curiosity was matched only by the townsfolk's, yet he respected the privacy of the widow, whose sorrow had become a public enigma. As winter deepened, the letters continued to arrive, their presence a steady heartbeat in the otherwise muted life of Ashbridge. They were tangible reminders of a connection that defied distance and anonymity, a dialogue that transcended the boundaries of the known and the unknown. For Eleanor Blackwood, the act of writing was more than a ritual. It was a lifeline to a world beyond her grief, a whispered conversation with a presence that may have existed only in the realm of hope and imagination. This unfolding story, the widow who wrote to a stranger, would soon become a defining chapter in Ashbridge's history, a tale whispered among generations as a testament to the enduring power of words and the human heart's capacity to seek connection in the face of profound loss. Yet, at this moment, the mystery remained intact, the stranger unknown, and Eleanor's letters a quiet beacon of longing in the winter's chill. The year 1826 in Ashbridge was a time when the roles and expectations imposed upon widows were as rigid and unyielding as the stone walls that lined the town's narrow streets. Society watched closely, dictating a path for women newly bereft, a path often marked by silence, submission, and solitude. In this landscape of prescribed mourning, Eleanor Blackwood's actions, her letters to an unknown recipient, stood at once as a quiet rebellion and a fragile testament to the inner turmoil of a woman navigating the depths of loss. England in the early 19th century was still very much a patriarchal society, where the status of women was defined largely by their relationships to men: daughters, wives, mothers. Widows occupied a peculiar and often uncomfortable social space. They were expected to withdraw gracefully from public life, to don black for periods measured by custom, and to embody a decorum that concealed the rawness of their grief. Eleanor's neighbors knew these unwritten rules well, and many viewed her seclusion through that lens. The dutiful widow mourning her departed husband, bound by the strictures of propriety. Yet behind the veil of black lace and the quiet curtains of her home, Eleanor wrestled with an emotional tempest that the conventions of her time could neither acknowledge nor assuage. Her loss was not merely a social status, but a profound rupture, one that fragmented the very foundations of her existence. The death of her husband, Charles Blackwood, had left a void so vast that the usual consolations seemed hollow. His passing, after a prolonged illness marked by fevers and frailty, had been both anticipated and devastating, a cruel paradox of hope and despair. The Blackwoods had been known in Ashbridge as a respectable family, their lives interwoven with the rhythms of the town's modest prosperity. Charles, a merchant by trade, was well liked for his quiet generosity and steadfast character. His illness, which had lingered through the previous year, had drawn a close-knit circle of sympathy around Eleanor, but the finality of his death shattered that protective shell. In the days following his burial, Eleanor withdrew entirely, retreating into the sanctuary of her home, where grief took root and deepened. It was in those early, aching days of widowhood that Eleanor's decision to write letters to a stranger emerged, a decision born from an impulse both to reach beyond her isolation and to give voice to the complex emotions that society expected her to suppress. Writing, for Eleanor, became an act of survival, a means of articulating thoughts and feelings that were otherwise forbidden or impossible to share. Her letters were not mere expressions of sorrow. They were intricate reflections on love's endurance, the cruel passage of time, and the fragile hope for renewal. The social conventions of 1826 England did not accommodate such candid exploration of grief. Widows were advised to maintain a stoic silence, to accept their fate with meekness, and to avoid public displays of emotion that might disrupt the community's fragile order. Eleanor's neighbors whispered about her increasingly solitary behavior with a mixture of sympathy and unease. Some, like Mrs. Harriet Winslow, the schoolmistress, recognized the therapeutic nature of Eleanor's writing, while others viewed it as a sign of delicate mental health, a danger lurking beneath the surface of genteel composure. Eleanor herself was acutely aware of these tensions. In one of her letters, she confessed, "To speak openly of sorrow is to invite judgment, yet to remain silent is to be consumed by it. I find in these pages a sanctuary where I may both mourn and dream without fear." Her words revealed a consciousness of the social strictures that sought to contain her, and a quiet defiance in choosing to defy them through the written word. The emotional impetus behind Eleanor's correspondence was deeply rooted in the intimate details of her marriage and its sudden severance. Charles had been more than a husband. He was a companion, a confidant, and the anchor of her world. Their union, while not without its challenges, had been marked by a rare tenderness and mutual respect. His illness had transformed their shared life into a series of painful farewells, each day a battle against the slow encroachment of death. Eleanor's letters often alluded to this ordeal, weaving memories of happier times with the stark reality of loss. In the letter dated November 17th, she wrote, "I recall the warmth of your hand in mine, the gentle laughter that filled our days before the shadow fell. Now, in the quiet hours, I seek you in the empty spaces, clinging to the echoes of your voice." Such passages resonated with a universal truth. Grief is as much about memory as absence, a delicate balance between holding on and letting go. Yet, Eleanor's writing was not solely an expression of lamentation. Amid the sorrow, there was a persistent thread of hope, a yearning for connection that transcended the physical separation wrought by death. Her letters hinted at an imagined dialogue with the stranger, a presence that might embody understanding, solace, or even redemption. This imagined recipient became a vessel for Eleanor's deepest desires and fears, allowing her to navigate the uncertain terrain of mourning without losing herself entirely. The townspeople's understanding of widowhood was shaped by long-standing customs and religious teachings. The Church of England, influential in Ashbridge's daily life, prescribed mourning rituals that emphasized restraint and piety. Widows were expected to wear mourning attire for at least a year, attend church regularly, and limit social engagements. These practices, while offering structure, often enforced isolation, leaving women like Eleanor to confront their grief in solitude. Eleanor's choice to write letters to an unknown figure disrupted these norms subtly but significantly. It suggested a refusal to be confined by societal expectations or to accept grief as a silent burden. Instead, she embraced a form of expression that was deeply personal yet outward-reaching, a bridge between her private sorrow and the wider world. This act challenged the community's perceptions of mourning and opened a space for empathy and reflection. The reactions within Ashbridge varied. Some neighbors regarded Eleanor with renewed respect, admiring her courage to confront grief so openly, even if only through letters. Others expressed concern that such behavior might lead her down a path of despair or madness. Reverend Thomas Hadley, torn between his pastoral duties and social responsibility, counseled patience and prayer, hoping that time would heal the wounds and bring Eleanor back into the fold of communal life. Meanwhile, Eleanor's health and demeanor reflected the complex interplay of emotional and social forces bearing down upon her. She was often pale, her hands trembling slightly as she wrote, yet there was a steadiness in her gaze that spoke of determination. Friends who dared to visit found her alternating between moments of profound sadness and unexpected clarity. Her writing became both a refuge and a form of self-preservation, a way to assert agency amid the vulnerability imposed by widowhood. The personal tragedy that shaped Eleanor's life also illuminated broader truths about the condition of women in early 19th century England. Widowhood, while conferring a degree of independence and financial control in some cases, was more often a passage marked by uncertainty and marginalization. Eleanor's story, though singular, echoed the experiences of countless women who faced the challenge of reconstructing identity and purpose after loss. In this context, her letters were more than private confessions. They were acts of resistance against erasure and invisibility. They gave voice to the complexities of grief, its contradictions, its depths, and its potential for transformation. Through the simple yet profound act of writing, Eleanor Blackwood carved out a space where sorrow could coexist with hope, and where a widow's heart could speak across the silence imposed by society. As the winter months wore on, The community of Ashbridge continued to observe Eleanor Blackwood with a mixture of curiosity, sympathy, and cautious admiration. Her letters, born of personal tragedy and shaped by the strictures of her time, had begun to weave a narrative that transcended individual loss. They invited reflection on the human capacity for connection, the resilience of the spirit, and the enduring power of words to bridge even the deepest divides. In the weeks that followed the first tender murmurings of Eleanor Blackwood's correspondence, the letters themselves began to take on a life of their own within the quiet confines of Ashbridge. The initial curiosity that had sparked whispers in the market and furtive glances in church pews deepened into a collective fascination as each newly discovered letter revealed more of Eleanor's soul laid bare, an intimate tapestry woven from threads of love, loss, and fragile hope. The earliest letters, dated between late October and early November, bore the unmistakable imprint of raw grief, yet they were crafted with a poetic sensitivity that defied the expected stoicism of the recently bereaved. Eleanor's hand, though sometimes unsteady, produced lines that flowed with an almost musical cadence, each sentence a delicate balance of sorrow and longing. She did not write merely to unburden herself. Her words were invitations into a dialogue, as though the stranger she addressed could hear the tremors of her heart and respond in kind. One such letter, penned on November 9th, opens with a wistful reflection. In the quiet hours when the world sleeps, I find myself speaking to you, not with voice, but with ink and paper, hoping that somehow these words may cross the gulf that separates us. The language is both tender and deliberate, revealing Eleanor's profound awareness of the loneliness that enveloped her, and her desperate desire to bridge that void through expression. The content of the letters revealed an extraordinary depth of thought and feeling, far beyond what might be expected from a woman confined by the strictures of her time. Eleanor mused on the nature of love itself, not simply as a bond between two souls, but as a force that persisted beyond death, transcending the limits of mortal existence. She wrote with philosophical insight, contemplating the fragility of memory, the passage of time, and the elusive promise of healing. In a particularly poignant passage dated November 22nd, she confessed, "Though your face remains a shadow in my mind, your presence lingers in every corner of this house, every whisper of the wind. I write to you as one might speak to a distant star, knowing that while I cannot touch you, the light you cast guides me through the darkness." This metaphor, rich with celestial imagery, underscored the ethereal quality of her grief, as well as her yearning for connection beyond the tangible. The townsfolk, who came to read these letters, often in secret, passing them quietly from hand to hand, were struck by the universality of Eleanor's emotions. Despite the specificity of her circumstances, her words resonated deeply, touching on themes familiar to all who had loved and lost. The letters became a mirror, reflecting the community's own hidden sorrows and unspoken hopes, transforming Eleanor's private lament into a shared experience. Yet the identity of the letter's recipient remained a tantalizing mystery. No one in Ashbridge could claim to know an A.L. who might be the object of Eleanor's devotion or despair. This absence only heightened the intrigue, prompting speculation that the stranger might be a lost lover, a confidant from a past life, or perhaps a symbol of something more abstract, a representation of hope, faith, or the human need for connection. The letters themselves were crafted with an artistry that suggested not only emotional depth, but also intellectual engagement. Eleanor employed a rich vocabulary, weaving classical references and poetic flourishes into her prose. She alluded to works of literature and scripture, drawing parallels between her own experiences and the universal themes explored by great writers and thinkers. This intertextuality added layers of meaning to her words, inviting readers to delve beneath the surface and contemplate the broader human condition. For example, in a letter dated December 1st, Eleanor wrote, "As the poet once said, to weep is to make less the depth of grief, yet I find that tears often carve deeper channels in the heart. It is through these waters that I seek to cleanse my soul, hoping that with time the flood will recede and leave behind fertile ground for new life." Such reflections revealed a mind attuned to the complexities of emotion and the paradoxes inherent in mourning. Eleanor's letters also showed a remarkable evolution in tone and content over time. Initially steeped in sorrow and remembrance, the correspondence gradually incorporated elements of hope and quiet resilience. She began to speak not only of what had been lost, but also of the possibility of renewal, of finding meaning beyond pain. This transformation was subtle, yet palpable, suggesting an inner journey from despair toward acceptance. In a letter written on December 15th, she acknowledged this shift candidly. "Though the night remains long and fraught with shadows, I sense the first stirrings of dawn. Your unseen presence has become a companion in this darkness, a gentle hand guiding me toward the light." Here, the stranger becomes a symbol not only of grief, but of healing, a beacon in the uncertain terrain of mourning. The townspeople who read these letters found themselves drawn into the delicate dance of Eleanor's emotions. Some were moved to tears, others to quiet contemplation. The letters inspired conversations in homes and taverns alike, as villagers pondered the mysteries of love and loss, and the strange power of words to connect souls across the divide. Eleanor's correspondence, though written in private, had become a communal experience, a shared thread weaving through the fabric of Ashbridge life. Mrs. Harriet Winslow, the schoolmistress, took a particular interest in the letters, recognizing their potential to illuminate the human experience for her pupils and neighbors. In her diary, she wrote, "Mrs. Blackwood's words are a testament to the enduring power of expression. They teach us that grief need not be a silent prison, but may instead become a language through which we find understanding and solace." Harriet's reflections helped to frame the letters not merely as personal documents, but as contributions to a broader discourse on emotion and resilience. Amid the growing attention, Eleanor remained a figure of mystery and quiet strength. Though her daily routine continued largely unchanged, writing at her desk by the window, retreating from public view, her letters revealed the inner life of a woman wrestling with profound loss and seeking connection where none seemed possible. The act of writing was both an act of mourning and a gesture of hope, a way to assert presence in a world that threatened to erase her. The letters also revealed Eleanor's keen awareness of the limitations imposed by her society. She wrote of the loneliness that came with widowhood, not only as personal grief, but as a social condition shaped by expectation and constraint. Her words hinted at a desire to transcend these boundaries, to communicate across barriers of silence and isolation. In doing so, Eleanor's correspondence became a subtle challenge to the norms that sought to confine women's experiences within narrow margins. Throughout this period, the letters remained unsigned save for the initial EB scrawled beneath each closing. The mystery of the addressee deepened, becoming a focal point for speculation and empathy alike. Who was this stranger to whom Eleanor entrusted her deepest thoughts? Was he a living person, a figment of imagination, or a symbolic embodiment of her own need for companionship? The uncertainty lent a haunting quality to the correspondence, as readers grappled with the tension between absence and presence, known and unknown. Eleanor's letters inhabited a liminal space, part confession, part invocation, part prayer, inviting those who encountered them to consider the porous boundaries between self and other, loss and hope. As December gave way to the early days of January, the letters continued to arrive, each a fragile vessel carrying Eleanor's evolving reflections. Their poetic beauty and emotional candor sustained the community's fascination, while the unanswered question of their recipient lingered like a whispered secret. In this way, Eleanor Blackwood's letters became more than mere documents. They were living testaments to the human capacity for connection, even in the face of profound absence and silence. As Eleanor Blackwood's letters continued to circulate quietly through Ashbridge, the community's curiosity began to coalesce into a complex tapestry of speculation, empathy, and whispered conjecture. The mystery of the unknown recipient, marked simply as A.L., became a subject of hushed conversations in parlours, at the market, and within the walls of the parish church. This growing intrigue transformed Eleanor's private correspondence into a communal enigma, one that both united and divided the townsfolk in equal measure. Among the earliest to voice theories about the stranger was Mrs. Margaret Fielding, a widow herself, and a woman known for her sharp wit and keen insight. Over a cup of tea at the village inn, she mused to a small gathering of neighbours. Surely this A.L. must be someone of great significance to Mrs. Blackwood, perhaps a lost love returned from distant lands, or a gentleman who once promised her marriage. Her suggestion ignited a flurry of responses, ranging from hopeful romantic notions to more skeptical dismissals. Others proposed that the stranger was not a living person at all, but rather a symbolic figure, an imagined confidant born from Eleanor's grief. This theory found favour among some of the clergy, including Reverend Thomas Hadley, who cautioned against indulging in fanciful speculation. "Grief can conjure many phantoms," he remarked during a sermon, "and while the heart seeks solace, it must not be led astray by shadows." His words, though measured, underscored the tension between faith, reason, and the mysteries of human emotion. The local postmaster, Mr. Samuel Griggs, found himself unwittingly at the centre of this growing intrigue. As the custodian of the mail, he observed the steady stream of letters addressed to A.L., and noted the care with which Eleanor prepared each missive. One afternoon, when questioned by a curious neighbour, he acknowledged that while the letters were sent, and sometimes returned unopened, no one in Ashbridge had claimed to be the recipient. His reticence only deepened the aura of mystery surrounding the correspondence. Within the town's social circles, the letters became a catalyst for reflection on the nature of loss and the human need for connection. At the weekly gathering of the Ashbridge Ladies' Society, discussions turned to Eleanor's letters with a mixture of admiration and concern. "It is both beautiful and tragic," remarked Mrs. Beatrice Lennox, "that one might pour their soul into words addressed to a stranger, hoping for a reply that may never come." Such sentiments revealed the tension between empathy for Eleanor's plight and the unease provoked by her unconventional behaviour. Yet not all reactions were sympathetic. Some townsfolk whispered that Eleanor's fixation on the unknown recipient bordered on delusion, a sign that her grief might be tipping into despair. The local apothecary, Mr. Thomas Carr, warned a visitor that, while sorrow is natural, it must be tempered with reason, lest it consume the mind. These murmurs reflected the limited understanding of mental health in the period, where expressions of profound emotion were often pathologized or dismissed. Despite these varied responses, a common thread emerged. Eleanor's letters had touched a chord within the community, revealing the often hidden depths of human sorrow and the yearning for understanding. The letters were sometimes read aloud in quiet gatherings, their poetic language eliciting tears and thoughtful silence. In this way, Eleanor's private grief became a shared experience, fostering a fragile sense of connection among the townspeople. The circulation of the letters also prompted unexpected acts of kindness and solidarity. Some neighbors began leaving small tokens of comfort, bundles of firewood, freshly baked bread, or hand-sewn shawls at Eleanor's doorstep, gestures intended to bridge the gap between her isolation and the community's care. These offerings, though anonymous, were tangible expressions of empathy inspired by the letter's emotional resonance. An illustrative moment occurred during the Christmas season, when the parish choir dedicated a hymn to the memory of Charles Blackwood, and by extension, to all who mourned. The congregation included Eleanor, whose presence was noted with quiet respect. The shared act of remembrance highlighted the community's attempt to embrace her within their collective sorrow, even as the mystery of her correspondence remained unanswered. The local children, too, played a role in the unfolding story. Some found the letters intriguing and sought to glimpse their contents, while others speculated wildly about the identity of A.L. Their innocent curiosity added another layer to the narrative, reminding adults of the universal nature of loss and the desire for connection. Tales circulated of children imagining secret meetings between Eleanor and her unseen correspondent, weaving fantasy into the fabric of reality. Within the walls of her home, Eleanor remained guarded. Visitors were rare, and when they did call, she received them with a gentle reserve that suggested both gratitude and reticence. Those who encountered her noted a subtle transformation. Though still marked by grief, she exhibited moments of quiet strength, a resilience that seemed to grow from the act of writing itself. The letters, then, were not merely expressions of sorrow, but also tools of self-preservation. Eleanor's behavior did not go unnoticed by the village's spiritual leaders. Reverend Hadley, despite his reservations about the unknown addressee, recognized the healing potential inherent in her writing. In private conversations with trusted parishioners, he acknowledged that sometimes the soul finds its own path to solace, even if it leads beyond the boundaries of convention. This nuanced perspective reflected a gradual shift in attitudes toward mourning and mental well-being within the community. The mystery of the stranger's identity fueled numerous theories, some more elaborate than others. One particularly fanciful notion suggested that A.L. was a gentleman who had perished at sea, his name lost to the waves, but his memory preserved through Eleanor's letters. Another posited that the recipient was a distant relative or a figure from Eleanor's youth, estranged yet ever present in her thoughts. Such conjecture underscored the human tendency to seek narratives that could explain the inexplicable. Despite the swirling speculation, no definitive answers emerged. The letters remained unanswered, their recipient elusive. This absence became a defining feature of the correspondence, imbuing the letters with an aura of longing that transcended the personal and touched upon universal themes of absence and presence. The enigmatic nature of Eleanor's letters and the community's responses highlighted the delicate balance between private grief and public curiosity. The townsfolk's reactions, ranging from compassionate to cautionary, revealed the complexities of human empathy and the social frameworks that shaped expressions of mourning in 1826 England. As the months passed, the letters continued to arrive at the post office, each one a testament to Eleanor's enduring commitment to this intangible relationship. The postmaster, though bound by discretion, occasionally confided to trusted acquaintances that he found himself moved by the devotion evident in the handwriting and the words. Yet he, like others, remained uncertain about the identity of A.L. and the fate of these heartfelt messages. In this climate of speculation and quiet reverence, Eleanor, Blackwood's correspondence, stood as both a beacon and a mystery, an intimate dialogue whose meaning resonated far beyond the simple act of writing. The townspeople of Ashbridge, bound by shared humanity and the silent language of loss, found themselves drawn into a story that challenged their understanding of connection, identity, and the enduring power of hope amid sorrow. As the weeks unfolded, Eleanor Blackwood's immersion in her correspondence deepened, and with it, her presence within the community began to shift in subtle yet unmistakable ways. Once a figure cloaked almost entirely in mourning and silence, she gradually became a woman whose daily rituals, centered on the writing and sending of letters, marked her as both a subject of sympathy and quiet concern. The townsfolk watched, some with empathy, others with unease, as Eleanor's world seemed to contract around her solitary engagement with the unseen recipient of her words. Eleanor's increasing seclusion was evident to all who observed her. She spent long hours at her writing desk, often well into the evening, the dim glow of candlelight flickering against the windows of her modest home on Willow Lane. The letters themselves grew in length and emotional intensity, as if each missive was an attempt to grasp at something elusive, a tether to a world beyond her grief. Her handwriting, once neat and flowing, sometimes faltered, the ink blotting or the script becoming hurried and uneven, betraying the turmoil within. Neighbors who passed by her home noted the curtains drawn tightly against the cold, and the silence that seemed to hang heavier there than elsewhere. Mrs. Harriet Winslow, the schoolmistress, and one of the few who dared to visit Eleanor occasionally, recorded in her diary the delicate balance she perceived. Mrs. Blackwood is both present and distant, as if caught between two worlds. Her eyes hold the weight of sorrow, yet there is a flicker of resolve, a determination that defies the isolation she wears like a mantle. Despite her withdrawal, Eleanor's interactions with those who ventured near were marked by a courteous reserve. When approached, she would respond with measured kindness, her voice soft but steady, revealing little of the storm raging beneath. Yet, occasional slips, a tremor in her hands, a distant look in her eyes, hinted at the fragile state of her mind. Those closest to her worried that the intensity of her letter-writing, combined with her solitude, might be eroding her grip on reality. The community's response was mixed. Some embraced Eleanor's need for solitude as a natural and necessary part of mourning, respecting the boundaries she set. Others, however, grew concerned that her behavior suggested a descent into despair or madness. The limited understanding of mental health in the period meant that expressions of intense grief were often viewed with suspicion or apprehension, and Eleanor's increasing isolation sparked whispered fears that she might be succumbing to melancholia. The local apothecary, Mr. Thomas Carr, was among those who voiced such concerns discreetly. In conversation with a fellow villager, he remarked, "There is a fine line between sorrow and madness, and Mrs. Blackwood treads close to its edge. One hopes that the company of others might draw her back from the shadows." This sentiment echoed a common belief of the time, that social engagement and distraction were remedies for emotional distress, a prescription difficult to fulfill when the subject herself sought solitude. Eleanor's routine became increasingly ritualized around her correspondence. Each morning, she would rise early, prepare a simple breakfast, and settle at her desk by the window, pen and paper at the ready. The act of writing was both a solace and a compulsion, a way to pour forth the myriad emotions that words spoken aloud might fail to capture. Her letters grew in complexity, weaving memories of the past with reflections on the present and hopes for the future, all addressed to the mysterious A.L., whose identity remained elusive. On occasion, Eleanor was seen wandering the fields beyond the village, her figure slender and solitary against the winter landscape. These walks appeared to serve as moments of reflection, brief respites from the intensity of her writing. She would often carry a small leather-bound journal, in which she made notes or sketched delicate drawings, floral motifs, stars, and abstract shapes that seemed to mirror the shifting currents of her thoughts. These glimpses into her private world only deepened the mystery surrounding her. Those who knew Eleanor struggled to reconcile the woman they observed with the vibrant soul revealed in her letters. Her correspondence spoke of a mind both tender and keenly perceptive, grappling with the profound pain of loss while seeking a path toward healing. Her words revealed a woman wrestling with the contradictions of grief, the desire to remember, and the need to move forward, the ache of absence, and the flicker of hope. In one letter dated late January, Eleanor wrote, "There are moments when the weight of sorrow threatens to engulf me, yet I find strength in these pages, where I may speak freely and dream of a dawn beyond this endless night." Such passages suggested that her letters were not only a means of mourning, but also a lifeline, a fragile bridge between despair and the possibility of renewal. However, the intensity of Eleanor's focus on her correspondence began to raise alarms among some in Ashbridge. Her withdrawal from social life became more pronounced. Invitations to community events were declined or ignored, and her presence at church waned. The parish priest, Reverend Hadley, expressed private concern to a trusted parishioner that Eleanor's grief might be hardening into a form of spiritual desolation. He pondered whether the act of writing, while therapeutic, might also be a retreat from the world she was meant to rejoin. The schoolmistress Harriet, ever mindful of Eleanor's fragile state, endeavored to maintain a delicate balance between offering companionship and respecting her need for privacy. She occasionally left small notes of encouragement, placed discreetly at Eleanor's doorstep, hopeful that these gestures might remind her that she was not alone. Harriet's diary entries reveal a profound empathy. "I fear for Mrs. Blackwood's soul, yet I marvel at her courage to confront the abyss with such honesty. Her letters are a testament to a heart both broken and brave." As winter gave way to early spring, Eleanor's letters began to include more frequent references to the changing seasons and the subtle shifts in nature. The imagery of renewal and growth crept tentatively into her prose, suggesting a gradual awakening within her spirit. Yet these moments of hope were interspersed with shadows, expressions of doubt, despair, and the persistent ache of absence that no passing season could fully heal. In the village, opinions about Eleanor's mental state remained divided. Some saw her as a tragic figure, a woman consumed by grief, but clinging to the slender thread of hope embodied in her letters. Others feared that her solitary rituals were signs of a mind unraveling, and that without intervention she might be lost to melancholy's depths. The limited resources and understanding of the era meant that such concerns were often met with helplessness rather than aid. Amid these tensions, Eleanor's relationship with her letters remained steadfast. They were her companions in solitude, her confessions in darkness, and her gestures of faith toward an unseen presence. The act of addressing A.L., whether a real person or a symbol, became a means of asserting existence in a world that threatened to eclipse her. Through words, she carved a space where grief could be honored and hope nurtured. This intricate dance between isolation and expression, despair and resilience, came to define Eleanor Blackwood in the eyes of Ashbridge. Her increasing seclusion was both a cause for concern and a testament to the profound depths of human sorrow. The community's watchful gaze, mingled with compassion and apprehension, underscored the fragile boundary between mourning and madness in a time when such distinctions were fraught with uncertainty. Within the quiet walls of her home, Eleanor continued to write, each letter a delicate thread woven into the fabric of her healing, each word a whisper to a stranger who had become the silent witness to her soul's journey through loss and toward the uncertain light of renewal. The mystery that had quietly grown around Eleanor Blackwood's letters took a decisive turn one crisp morning in early March, when a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. At the heart of this revelation was Mr. Samuel Griggs, the village postmaster, whose daily handling of the mail had placed him in a unique position to observe the trail of correspondence that flowed steadily from Eleanor's modest home. His discovery would ripple through Ashbridge, adding new layers of complexity to the story and altering the community's understanding of the widow's enigmatic relationship. For months, Mr. Griggs had dutifully processed the letters addressed to A.L., noting their regular dispatch and the care with which Eleanor prepared each envelope. Yet, despite his curiosity, he had respected the privacy of the sender, refraining from inquiry beyond the bounds of his role. It was only when a letter, returned unopened by the postal service, bore a faint but legible inscription on its back, an address in the neighboring town of Larkspur, that the postmaster's attention sharpened. Larkspur, a town some 10 miles from Ashbridge, was known for its quiet streets and a handful of reclusive residents. Intrigued, Mr. Griggs took it upon himself to investigate, driven by a mixture of professional responsibility and personal curiosity. In a rare departure from protocol, he traveled to Larkspur under the pretense of delivering a misplaced parcel and sought information about the addressee A.L. from local residents and officials. What he discovered was both surprising and enigmatic. The recipient was identified as Mr. Alastair Langley, a gentleman of considerable age who lived alone in a secluded manor on the outskirts of town. Known to few and visited even less, Langley was reputed to be a man with a shadowed past, one marked by loss, reclusion, and whispers of scandal. His name was seldom spoken in Ashbridge, and his existence had remained largely peripheral to the lives of Eleanor's neighbors. Mr. Griggs's initial visit to Langley's estate was met with cautious hospitality. The gentleman himself was a tall, austere figure, with piercing eyes that seemed to measure the postmaster's intentions with quiet suspicion. When presented with the returned letter addressed to him, Langley's expression shifted to one of recognition tinged with melancholy. He admitted to having received similar letters in the past, but declined to discuss their contents or the identity of the sender. The postmaster's report to Ashbridge's town council ignited a flurry of speculation and debate. Who was this mysterious Mr. Langley, and what connection did he bear to the grieving widow whose letters had captivated the community? The discovery challenged previous assumptions that the letters were addressed to a figment of Eleanor's imagination or a symbolic presence. Instead, it introduced the possibility of a tangible relationship, one shrouded in secrecy and complexity. Further inquiries into Langley's background revealed a life marked by tragedy and withdrawal. Once a prominent figure in the county's social circles, he had retreated from public life following the untimely death of his wife and the estrangement of his only son. Rumors hinted at financial difficulties and personal scandals that had compelled him to seek solace in isolation. Yet, beneath this veneer of darkness, some suggested he possessed a profound sensitivity and a capacity for deep emotional connection. News of Langley's identity and his link to Eleanor's letters spread quickly through Ashbridge. The townsfolk reacted with a mixture of intrigue, empathy, and wariness. For some, the revelation added a layer of romantic tragedy to the narrative, a tale of two souls bound by loss, reaching across distance and silence. For others, it raised questions about the nature of their correspondence and the reasons for its secrecy. The local clergy, represented by Reverend Thomas Hadley, expressed cautious support for further understanding. In private conversations, he mused on the possibility that Eleanor's letters might serve as a conduit for healing, bridging two wounded hearts. Yet, he also warned of the dangers inherent in such clandestine connections, particularly in a society that prized discretion and reputation. Within the town, a small circle of trusted individuals sought to learn more about Langley's relationship with Eleanor. Mrs. Harriet Winslow, the schoolmistress, took a particular interest, hoping that insight into this connection might illuminate the mysteries of grief and resilience. She corresponded discreetly with acquaintances in Larkspur, piecing together fragments of Langley's life and character. Meanwhile, Eleanor remained largely aloof from the stir her letters had caused. Her daily routine continued uninterrupted, her focus unwaveringly fixed on the act of writing. When approached gently by Harriet during a rare visit, Eleanor acknowledged the discovery of Langley's identity with a quiet nod, offering little elaboration. Her reticence deepened the enigma, suggesting that the correspondence was bound by unspoken understandings and complex emotions. The correspondence itself took on new significance in light of this revelation. Rather than mere expressions of solitary mourning, the letters could now be seen as part of a mutual exchange, an ongoing dialogue between two individuals navigating their respective griefs. This perspective transformed the community's perception of Eleanor, casting her not only as a grieving widow, but as an active participant in a delicate and profound relationship. As the town grappled with these developments, questions abounded. How had Eleanor and Langley come to know one another? What secrets lay beneath their written words? And why had their correspondence remained hidden from public view? The answers, if they existed, were veiled behind layers of discretion and loss. Some speculated that the two had met years prior, their lives intersecting through social events or mutual acquaintances. Others suggested a more recent connection, forged in the aftermath of personal tragedy and nurtured through the solace of letters. The nature of their bond, whether romantic, platonic, or something more ambiguous, remained a matter of conjecture. The secrecy surrounding their correspondence was also a source of debate. In a society governed by strict codes of conduct and reputation, such discreet communication might have been necessary to protect both parties from gossip and scandal. The possibility that Eleanor and Langley's relationship challenged social norms added a layer of tension to the unfolding story. Despite the intrigue, there was a shared recognition of the humanity at the heart of the correspondence. Both Eleanor and Langley were individuals shaped by loss, seeking connection in a world that often offered little comfort. Their letters served as lifelines, fragile threads weaving together separate lives through the intimacy of written words. In the days following the postmaster's discovery, Ashbridge found itself at a crossroads between curiosity and respect. The townspeople debated whether to press for more information or to honor the privacy of the two correspondents. Many leaned toward discretion, acknowledging that some mysteries are best preserved in silence, especially when they touch upon the delicate matters of the heart. The revelation of Alistair Langley's identity marked a turning point in Eleanor Blackwood's story. It transformed a tale once perceived as solitary mourning into one of connection and shared humanity. Yet the complexities and nuances of their relationship remained shrouded in mystery, inviting continued reflection on the nature of grief, love, and the unseen bonds that link us across distance and time. As spring edged forward, bringing with it the promise of renewal, the correspondence between Eleanor and Langley endured, a silent dialogue unfolding in the shadows, bridging the spaces between two wounded souls. The community of Ashbridge, now privy to this secret, watched with a mixture of awe and reverence. Their understanding deepened, but their questions far from answered. In the weeks following the unveiling of Mr. Alistair Langley, as the recipient of Eleanor Blackwood's letters, a new chapter in their correspondence quietly unfolded, marked by the arrival of replies that revealed a delicate, profound exchange, previously hidden from the eyes of Ashbridge. The community, now aware of the connection between the widow and the reclusive gentleman of Larkspur, observed with a blend of fascination and respect as the written dialogue blossomed into a fragile but meaningful relationship, one that transcended distance, loss, and the barriers of silence that had long enveloped them both. The first response from Langley arrived in mid-March, carried by the steady hands of Mr. Griggs, who had become an unintentional guardian of this intimate communication. The letter was penned in a script markedly different from Eleanor's flowing hand, more angular, deliberate, and restrained, yet imbued with a quiet eloquence that spoke volumes beneath its measured surface. The contents of the letter were suffused with a tone of melancholy, tempered by gratitude, acknowledging Eleanor's correspondence as a balm for a heart similarly wounded by grief. Langley's opening lines read, "Dear Mrs. Blackwood, your letters have been a light in the long shadows that have settled upon my days. In your words, I find a kinship of sorrow and a shared yearning for solace that transcends the silence between us. This admission of mutual pain and understanding set the tone for a dialogue that would explore the depths of human connection forged through written word, bridging not only physical distance, but the isolating chasms wrought by loss." The letters that followed revealed a gradual unfolding of trust and vulnerability. Langley, once known in the county for his austere demeanor, unveiled glimpses of a soul tenderly attuned to the nuances of suffering and hope. He recounted memories of his late wife, the fractures in his family, and the solitude that had become both refuge and prison. His words were careful, yet heartfelt, revealing a man grappling with the weight of his past while seeking a measure of peace through shared understanding. Eleanor's replies, in turn, reflected a growing sense of companionship and reflection. Her writing, while still marked by the tenderness of mourning, began to incorporate themes of healing and resilience, inspired by Langley's own openness. Their letters became a woven tapestry of emotion and thought, each missive a thread connecting two isolated hearts, navigating the uncertain terrain of grief. The content of their correspondence was remarkable, not only for its emotional candor, but also for its intellectual depth. Both Eleanor and Langley engaged in thoughtful discourse on subjects ranging from literature and philosophy to the nature of memory and the passage of time. Their letters referenced poets and theologians, weaving classical allusions into personal reflections that elevated their exchange beyond mere consolation into a shared exploration of meaning. In one letter, Langley quoted from the works of John Milton, "The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven." He related this to his own struggle to find peace amid the turmoil of loss, a sentiment to which Eleanor responded with a meditation on the transformative power of memory and hope. This interplay of ideas underscored the rarity and depth of their connection, transcending the conventional boundaries of mourning to become a dialogue of souls. As their written relationship matured, Eleanor and Langley began to share more intimate details of their lives and inner worlds. Eleanor described the rhythms of her days in Ashbridge, the solace she found in the changing seasons, and the lingering presence of Charles's memory in her home. Langley recounted moments of regret and longing, the estrangement from his son, and the quiet moments of reflection that punctuated his solitude. Their letters also revealed an evolving dynamic, a delicate negotiation between vulnerability and restraint, openness and discretion. Both were acutely aware of the societal constraints that shaped their lives, and their correspondence was careful to maintain a tone of propriety, even as it ventured into the realm of personal revelation. This balance lent their exchange an air of intimacy, tempered by respect, a shared understanding of the fragility of their connection. The townspeople of Ashbridge, privy to the existence of this correspondence, but not its contents, observed Eleanor's demeanor with renewed interest. Those who encountered her noted a subtle transformation. While still marked by the traces of grief, she carried herself with a quiet strength, buoyed by the knowledge that her words were met and answered. This sense of being heard and understood appeared to infuse her with a renewed purpose and a tentative hope. Mrs. Harriet Winslow, who had maintained a discreet friendship with Eleanor, reflected on this change in her diary. "The letters have breathed new life into Mrs. Blackwood's spirit. There is a lightness to her step and a clarity to her gaze that was absent in the depths of winter. It is as though, through this unseen correspondence, she has found a companion in the vast expanse of sorrow." Meanwhile, Langley's responses, though never sent in person, carried a weight that transcended their physical journey. The letters became a testament to the power of words to bridge isolation, offering solace where none seemed possible. They transformed the act of writing from a solitary endeavor into a shared ritual, a communion of hearts across the miles. Their correspondence also sparked reflection on the nature of grief and healing within the broader community. Reverend Hadley, upon learning of the exchange, mused in a private sermon on the church's role in tending to the wounded soul. "In the silence of mourning, we often seek a voice to echo our pain and a hand to steady our trembling hearts. The letters of Mrs. Blackwood and Mr. Langley remind us that such solace may be found in the unexpected places and forms." As spring blossomed in Ashbridge, the letters continued to arrive and depart, their fragile journey an unspoken testament to the enduring human need for connection. Eleanor and Langley's written dialogue, though cloaked in discretion, was a beacon of hope and understanding, illuminating the path from despair toward healing. Yet, despite the deepening of their exchange, the relationship remained bounded by the constraints of distance and circumstance. Neither Eleanor nor Langley ventured beyond the safe confines of their letters, and their meetings in person were but a distant possibility, one that hung in the unspoken spaces between their words. This absence lent their correspondence a poignant quality, a reminder of the limits and possibilities of human connection. The Ayub mystery of their relationship and the content of their letters continued to captivate Ashbridge, inspiring quiet admiration and a sense of shared humanity. Their story became a living testament to the power of words to heal and to the resilience of the human heart in the face of loss. In the delicate balance of their correspondence, Eleanor Blackwood and Alistair Langley found not only companionship, but a mirror for their own grief and hope, a dialogue that transcended the silence and solitude of mourning to become a bridge between two souls searching for light in the shadowed landscape of loss. As the correspondence between Eleanor Blackwood and Alistair Langley deepened, so too did the complexities that accompanied their growing connection. The letters, once filled with raw expressions of grief and tentative hope, began to reveal the weight of societal constraints and personal doubts that cast long shadows over their fragile relationship. Within the delicate folds of ink and paper, themes emerged that spoke not only to the challenges of mourning, but also to the intricate dance between desire and decorum in early 19th century England. Eleanor's missives increasingly reflected an awareness of the social boundaries that circumscribed her actions as a widow. Though their exchange was conducted in secret, she grappled with the implications of fostering an intimate relationship outside the conventional expectations of her station. In a letter dated late April, she confessed, "Though your words are a balm to my spirit, I find myself ensnared by the invisible chains of propriety. Society demands silence from widows like me, a quiet mourning sealed behind black lace and polite restraint. Yet in these letters, I taste a freedom both exhilarating and fraught with peril." Her admission illuminated the tension between the private solace found in their dialogue and the public scrutiny that governed her life. Widowhood, in the society of Ashbridge and beyond, was a paradoxical state, granting a degree of independence while simultaneously imposing strictures that limited a woman's autonomy. Eleanor's correspondence with Langley, though a source of comfort, risked transgressing these unspoken rules, exposing her to potential censure or scandal. Langley's responses mirrored this ambivalence. Though his letters conveyed a profound empathy and a desire for connection, they were laced with caution and a recognition of the delicate balance they maintained. In one poignant passage, he wrote, "Our words traverse boundaries not easily crossed by those who dwell in the light of society's gaze. I fear the shadows that may fall upon us, yet I cherish this communion that sustains us beyond the confines of convention." His reflection underscored the mutual understanding that their relationship existed in a liminal space, between public expectation and private yearning. The constraints of their era extended beyond social propriety to encompass the limitations imposed by distance and circumstance. Both Eleanor and Langley were bound to their respective homes, their lives shaped by past tragedies and present obligations. The absence of physical meetings lent their correspondence a bitter-sweet quality, as the letters became the sole medium through which they could share their thoughts and emotions. This separation heightened their longing, even as it preserved the safety of discretion. Within Ashbridge, Eleanor's gradual transformation became more evident to those who observed her. Her letters revealed a growing strength and self-realization, a subtle shift from sorrow toward resilience. Yet, this evolution was not linear. Moments of doubt and despair persisted, interwoven with flashes of hope and determination. Her writing bore witness to the complex process of healing, a journey marked by both progress and setback. In a letter dated early May, Eleanor articulated this duality. "There are days when the weight of absence presses so heavily that I can scarcely breathe, and yet, in the quiet of the night, I find a spark that refuses to be extinguished. Your letters kindle this flame, reminding me that even in darkness, the heart may find a path to light." This eloquent expression of vulnerability and courage resonated deeply with Langley, who responded with words of solidarity and encouragement. Their exchange also confronted the broader challenges posed by societal norms and personal fears. Both correspondents wrestled with the implications of their bond, how it might be perceived by others, the risks it entailed, and the uncertain future that lay beyond their letters. Eleanor, in particular, questioned the possibility of moving beyond correspondence to a fuller connection, tempered by the realities of her position and the expectations of her community. Despite these challenges, the correspondence became a crucible for personal growth. Eleanor's letters charted a trajectory from isolation toward self-empowerment as she navigated the tension between mourning and the desire for renewal. Her reflections revealed an evolving understanding of grief, not as a static state, but as a dynamic process capable of transformation. Langley's contributions to their dialogue were equally significant. His letters conveyed not only empathy, but also a willingness to confront his own past and the estrangement from his son. Through their exchange, he found a space to articulate regrets and hopes, fostering a sense of reconciliation within himself. Their letters thus served as mutual mirrors, reflecting and shaping their journeys toward healing. The interplay between personal growth and societal challenge was mirrored in the reactions of Ashbridge's community. While some neighbors continued to view Eleanor with sympathy and admiration, others harbored doubts or expressed concern over the potential consequences of her correspondence. The tension between empathy and apprehension highlighted the limited avenues available to women like Eleanor, whose grief and desires existed at odds with prevailing norms. Reverend Hadley, aware of these complexities, offered cautious support. In conversations with parishioners, he acknowledged the therapeutic value of Eleanor's correspondence, while emphasizing the need for discretion and propriety. His stance reflected a broader negotiation within the community, balancing compassion with adherence to social order. Amid these challenges, Eleanor's letters demonstrated a growing assertiveness and clarity of purpose. She articulated a desire not merely to survive grief, but to transcend it, to reclaim agency over her life and emotions. This emerging self-realization was both inspiring and fraught, as it demanded a reevaluation of her identity beyond the role of widow. Their letters occasionally touched upon the possibility of meeting in person, though such discussions were tentative and circumspect. The prospect of physical encounter was fraught with uncertainty, constrained by social expectations and personal fears. Yet, the very contemplation of such a possibility marked a significant step in their evolving relationship. Throughout this period, the correspondence remained a delicate dance, each letter a negotiated act of trust, vulnerability, and restraint. Eleanor and Langley navigated the complexities of their bond with sensitivity, mindful of the risks and rewards inherent in their connection. Their words became vessels carrying hopes and fears, desires and doubts, woven together in a tapestry of shared humanity. As spring deepened into early summer, the letters continued to flow between Ashbridge and Larkspur, sustaining a connection that defied distance and convention. Eleanor's journey from sorrow to strength was mirrored in the letter's tone and content, reflecting the enduring power of human connection to inspire growth and healing. The story of Eleanor Blackwood and Alistair Langley thus became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity to seek and find companionship, understanding, and self-discovery, even in the face of societal constraints and personal hardship. Their correspondence illuminated the intricate interplay between grief and hope, isolation and connection, tradition and transformation. In the quiet spaces between their words, Eleanor and Langley forged a bond that transcended the limitations of their time, a silent testament to the enduring quest for meaning and belonging that defines the human experience. The arrival of a letter in early June marked a turning point in the correspondence between Eleanor Blackwood and Alistair Langley, one that would unveil a poignant revelation and bring their delicate exchange to a moment of profound clarity. For months, their written dialogue had unfolded with measured candor and mutual respect, navigating the complexities of grief, hope, and societal constraint. Yet, hidden beneath the graceful prose lay truths and intentions that had remained unspoken until now. Eleanor's letter arrived on a day when the sun cast a warm glow upon Ashbridge, the village stirring with the gentle promise of summer. The envelope, sealed with her familiar monogram, was carried by Mr. Griggs to Larkspur, where Langley awaited its contents with anticipation tempered by caution. As he broke the seal and unfolded the parchment, he found within words that shimmered with vulnerability and a quiet resolve. In the letter, Eleanor disclosed a truth she had long kept guarded. The stranger to whom she had been writing was not merely a confidant, but the only person with whom she felt safe to reveal the depths of her sorrow and the fragments of her heart. She confessed that the letters were her way of bridging the chasm left by Charles's death, of reaching out to a soul she trusted implicitly, even if their relationship remained shrouded in discretion. But more than this, Eleanor revealed a secret kept from the community, a truth that cast new light on the nature of their bond. She acknowledged that Alistair Langley was not only the recipient of her letters, but also a figure intertwined with her past in ways neither had fully acknowledged. The correspondence, she implied, was a continuation of a connection forged long before grief had drawn them together anew. Her words bore a tone both tender and resolute. "It is to you, Alistair, that I entrust the fragments of my heart, the memories both joyful and painful that shape me still. Though the world demands silence, I find in our letters a sanctuary where truth may dwell, and where the shadows of our past may be met with understanding rather than judgment." Langley's response, written in the quiet solitude of his study, acknowledged the weight of Eleanor's revelation with a mixture of sorrow and compassion. He expressed gratitude for her trust and reaffirmed his own commitment to their shared journey through grief and healing. His letter conveyed a deep recognition of the complexities that bound them, past regrets, unspoken emotions, and the fragile hope for acceptance. This exchange precipitated a subtle but profound shift in their relationship. The letters took on a new dimension, moving beyond the expressions of mourning and philosophical reflection to a more intimate dialogue about reconciliation, forgiveness, and the possibility of renewal. Their correspondence became a space where they could confront the shadows of their histories and envision a future shaped not solely by loss, but by the strength found in mutual understanding. Within Ashbridge, the revelation of Langley's identity had already stirred the undercurrents of gossip and speculation. But Eleanor's letter, though private, offered a glimpse into the personal dimensions behind the public mystery. For those few confidants aware of the correspondence, it underscored the courage required to navigate such a fraught path, balancing the demands of society with the imperatives of the heart. The community's reactions remained measured, reflecting the pervasive tensions between empathy and propriety that characterized the era. While some admired Eleanor's fortitude and Langley's steadfastness, others viewed the unfolding relationship through the lens of caution, wary of the social ramifications that might ensue should their bond become more overt. Reverend Hadley, in particular, grappled with these tensions. In private counsel, he advised patience and prudence, emphasizing the importance of discretion in preserving both reputations and peace. Yet, beneath his admonitions lay an acknowledgement of the transformative power of love and forgiveness, a recognition that healing often required courage to transcend convention. Eleanor's own reflections, as revealed in subsequent letters, conveyed a nuanced understanding of the challenges ahead. She wrote candidly of the fears that accompanied the prospect of greater openness, the risk of misunderstanding, rejection, and the loss of the fragile sanctuary their letters had provided. Yet, she also expressed a determination to embrace authenticity, to live in accordance with the truths they had uncovered. In one poignant passage, she mused, "To reveal one's heart is to expose it to both light and shadow. Yet, I choose the light, trusting that in honesty there lies a path not only to healing, but to a fuller life beyond the confines of grief." Langley's responses echoed this sentiment, affirming a shared commitment to face whatever trials might come with courage and grace. Their correspondence thus became a testament not only to the endurance of grief, but to the redemptive possibilities of vulnerability and trust. Amid these intimate exchanges, the question of physical reunion lingered unspoken, yet palpable. Both Eleanor and Langley recognized the gravity of such a step, a crossing of thresholds fraught with emotional and social implications. Their letters hinted at a longing for encounter, tempered by an awareness of the constraints that bound them. The tension between desire and restraint infused their correspondence with a delicate poignancy. Each letter became a careful negotiation, balancing hope with caution, intimacy with discretion. Their words carried the weight of unspoken promises and deferred dreams, weaving a narrative of connection that transcended the limitations imposed by distance and circumstance. Within the broader community, Eleanor's evolving demeanor reflected the inner transformations wrought by this correspondence. Those who observed her noted a renewed vitality tempered by thoughtful reserve, a woman reshaped by grief, but strengthened by the bonds she had forged. Her letters, though private, seemed to imbue her with a sense of purpose and self-awareness that resonated beyond her immediate circle. Mrs. Harriet Winslow, faithful confidant and chronicler of Eleanor's journey, recorded in her diary, "There is a quiet dignity to Mrs. Blackwood now, a grace born of struggle and revelation. Her letters speak not only of sorrow, but of a courage that embraces truth in all its complexity." The revelation of Langley's identity and Eleanor's admission marked a pivotal moment in their story, a moment where silence gave way to truth, and where the shadows of the past were met with the light of understanding. Their correspondence, once a refuge from the world, had become a bridge toward reconciliation and hope. As summer advanced, the letters continued to flow between Ashbridge and Larkspur, carrying the echoes of their shared journey. In the spaces between words, Eleanor and Langley navigated the intricate terrain of trust and vulnerability, forging a connection that defied distance, convention, and the lingering pain of loss. Their story, woven through ink and paper, stood as a testament to the enduring power of human connection, the courage to reveal one's heart, the grace to receive it, and the hope that, amid sorrow, healing and renewal remain possible. The tale of Eleanor Blackwood's letters, once a whispered enigma confined to the narrow lanes of Ashbridge and the quiet halls of Larkspur, gradually evolved into a local legend that transcended the boundaries of time and place. Long after the final pages had been penned and the correspondence ceased, the story lingered in the collective memory of the villagers, inspiring generations to find solace in the unexpected connections that can arise from grief and hope intertwined. In the years following the delicate exchange between Eleanor and Alistair Langley, their letters were preserved, some by family descendants, others by curious townsfolk, who recognized the profound humanity captured within the fragile pages. These letters came to symbolize more than a private dialogue. They became artifacts of resilience, testament to the enduring power of written words as bridges between isolated souls. Ashbridge, once a quiet village marked by routine and tradition, found in Eleanor's story a mirror reflecting its own capacity for empathy and transformation. The legend of the widow who dared to reach beyond societal conventions to seek understanding resonated deeply, encouraging others to recognize the value of vulnerability and the potential for connection even in the bleakest of circumstances. Local scholars and historians eventually took an interest in the correspondence, uncovering the letters and contextualizing them within the broader social fabric of early 19th century England. Their research illuminated the constraints faced by widowed women, the stigmas surrounding mental health, and the limited avenues for emotional expression available at the time. Eleanor's letters, studied alongside contemporary accounts, offered a rare glimpse into the intimate struggles and quiet rebellions of a woman navigating a world that often sought to silence her. The letters also sparked philosophical and literary discourse beyond Ashbridge, inspiring essays and lectures on the nature of grief, the role of epistolary communication in human relationships, and the ways in which anonymity and distance can foster profound intimacy. Critics and readers alike marveled at Eleanor's poetic sensitivity and Langley's measured eloquence, recognizing in their exchange a timeless exploration of love, loss, and the search for meaning. Within the village itself, the memory of Eleanor and her letters became intertwined with local identity. Annual commemorations were held, during which residents gathered to read excerpts from the correspondence, reflecting on the universal themes of sorrow and healing. These events fostered a sense of community and continuity, linking past and present through shared remembrance. The story also found its way into the arts, inspiring plays, paintings, and musical compositions that sought to capture the emotional landscape traversed by Eleanor and Langley. Artists were drawn to the interplay of light and shadow in their narrative, the tension between absence and presence, silence and expression, despair and hope. Through these creative interpretations, the legend assumed new forms, reaching audiences far beyond the village's borders. Yet, amid the public celebration and scholarly fascination, the essence of Eleanor's journey remained deeply personal, a testament to the enduring human capacity to seek connection in the face of isolation, to find voice amidst silence, and to embrace hope amid grief. Her letters, fragile and intimate, spoke across generations, reminding readers that the act of reaching out, even to a stranger, can kindle a light in the darkness. The legacy of Eleanor Blackwood's correspondence invites reflection on the timeless nature of written words as vessels of emotion and understanding. In an age before instant communication, her letters were lifelines, weaving a tapestry of shared humanity across distance and time. They exemplify how the written word can transcend physical absence, creating spaces where isolated souls may meet and heal. Moreover, Eleanor's story challenges contemporary readers to consider the complexities of grief and the varied paths toward healing. Her courage to articulate sorrow, to engage in dialogue despite societal constraints, illuminates the resilience inherent in the human spirit. It encourages an openness to vulnerability and a recognition of connection as a vital force in personal transformation. Today, the story of Eleanor Blackwood and Alistair Langley continues to inspire, a quiet whisper in the corridors of history that beckons us to listen. It reminds us that behind every letter, every word penned in solitude, lies the potential for profound connection, a bridge between hearts that may guide us through the shadows toward light. As the village of Ashbridge thrives in the modern era, the memory of the widow who wrote, "To a stranger endures," a beacon of hope and humanity. Her story, etched in ink and soul, invites all who hear it to consider the mysteries held within personal grief and the enduring power of human connection that transcends time, distance, and circumstance.